Hello beautiful people. March is looking like another packed month, and what is shaping up to be an amazing year for gaming. We have a wide variety of games to look forward to, and I hope you have the time and money to maybe give some of them a try. Time to sit down, grab a drink, open up Steam, and start wishlisting. This has been coming for a long time. I remember playing the demo years ago, and just loving the atmosphere. Explore the haunted halls of the Hanwell Mental Institute in this throwback adventure horror game from the creators of Scratches, a somewhat obscure cult classic. Asylum took the team 15 years to make, and it looks like it will live up to the wait. Expect mind-bending puzzles, an immersive soundscape, and tension that will leave your stomach in a knot. Something for fans of classic adventure gaming, and more retro-inspired horror. A turn-based resource management game where you're advising the Sultan on all his machinations. The game is gorgeous, the art style is unique and incredibly vibrant. Every image just leaps off the screen. Double Cross really knows where to put their budget. The game also showcases the endless amount of choices you can make. Use the cards wisely, choose who you benefit and who you send to their deaths. Then use these choices to further grow your pool of cards. It's an intricate but easy to understand system that just feels intuitive once you start playing. Looking forward to seeing what kind of damage I can do with all these choices. Love the style of this one. The monochromatic graphics really give a stark atmosphere and melancholic vibes that I really enjoy in my RPGs. Created by Tesseract Games, Song of Rats is a dungeon crawler that was inspired by choose your own adventure books. Think of Death Trap Dungeon or fighting fantasy, but with more space. It's also a roguelite, which just reminds me a little of The Pit. A bit of a classic with a space theme. It's got my attention based on its atmosphere and art style, but I'm looking forward to seeing if the gameplay is able to match. Psycho Patrol R is from Consumer Soft Products, and is their follow-up to Cruelty Squad, a game that's always been on my peripheral but I never really committed to it. The game has you in control of a mech to help you subdue the criminals, and a semi-open world that gives you options on how to approach. There is high hopes for this one since their last game was such a huge hit. Duel Corp. Played the demo last year and loved it. The directional combat was intuitive, and the game has a crunchy art style that I really enjoy. Not sure about how much game is being presented here since it is releasing in early access, and so far the trailers and demo have given a very sparse look of the environments. I'm interested to see what Dream Effect Entertainment does with this one. I hope the exploration of the game is as good as the combat. A sequel to a game from way back on the Commodore 64. Ask your grandparents, kids. I'm sure they can find info about that game somewhere on their ancient scrolls. I have no idea what the original was like since I never played it, but from the sequel shown here, I guess it was a Metroidvania? Maybe? Beyond the Ice Palace 2 comes from Storybird Studio, and looks great. It's clearly taking heavy inspiration from Castlevania, which isn't a bad thing since that franchise has been left out in the rain by Konami, and the combat looks like it has a good variety of moves. The visuals are pixel perfect, and since Metroidvania fans are never sated, this will be another full course meal for them to have their fill with. Get some napkins, table, and prepare to feast. Karma the Dark World takes place in 1984. Oh, so we aren't even keeping it subtle. You play a roam agent that uses technology to solve crimes, and part of that involves invading people's minds to get to the bottom of what happened. The developers really did some hard work on these visuals. They look amazing, suitably dark and oppressive. Though personally, I've never been a fan of Unreal Engine 5 games, the uncanny valley effect of the visuals just take me out of it. But this game will be playing around with reality, so it should be interesting to see what messed up visuals the developer is ready to subject us to. Keep an eye on this if you enjoy dystopian mystery. A re-release of a classic series that most people have never heard of. The Fate series is a bunch of action RPGs, taking place in procedural dungeons, gaining new skills, going deeper into the dungeon, killing more enemies, and fishing. Just fishing. While the series looks a bit dated, I never tried these back in the day, and always enjoy a good action RPG. There are clearly fans of this series in order for them to do a re-release, so maybe keep an eye on it. Could be fun. This one's very interesting. A co-op only puzzle platformer. One person is the puppet and the other the animator. Studio Popote has a cool concept on their hands. It's kind of like Trine but a bit more involved. Visually, the game looks gorgeous, and is another one that's trying to evoke that beautiful stop-motion look from films like Nightmare Before Christmas or Coraline. Hopefully, the game lives up to the visuals and concept, but I'm going to hedge my bets here. I would keep my eyes on this. That's staying in the script. A sequel to one of the few Stalker-likes out there, and a great game that one of my friends just loves talking about. It's good, I hear. Go out into the zone and scavenge supplies to build your base and supply of weapons. Take on quests, side with some factions, and just go nuts in the zone. Chernobylite 2 seems to be going in a different direction from the first game, having a much larger open world to explore, and combat being more a mixture of Dark Souls and Remnant. It's a weird direction to take, but I have to give it to the developers for taking that swing. Looking forward to seeing if it lives up to the original, but if you haven't played the first, give it a go, you won't be disappointed. Japanese Drift Master is exactly what the title implies. Enter the Japanese drift racing scene and work your way to the top. What is the sound of one-hand driving? Complete races, get money, build up your car further, or just buy a new one. I haven't played a proper racing game in years, and this one is calling my name. Getting strong low-budget Ridge Racer vibes here. Gaming Factory, the developer of the game, has one of the most eclectic libraries I've ever seen on Steam. From tower defense to simulation games. Now, I'm even more interested to see how they pull this off. Good pixel art will always take a game far, and Centum looks gorgeous, if not upsetting. Centum, from Hack the Publisher, is an open-ended adventure game where everything is unreliable. I don't know what that means, but the implication is that every scenario doesn't have a definitive answer, and instead, your choices shape how the story progresses and plays out. Don't expect a standard adventure game here, only the weird stuff, the stuff your parents warned you about. One hit of this, and you'll never be the same. Speaking of never being the same, hope you're enjoying the video so far, and if you are, why not give it a like? If you're a fan of videos about indie gaming, then also subscribe. I release videos weekly, or try, and have plenty more in the pipeline. Thank you, and back to the games. Aneurism IV is very ambitious. A multiplayer PvP where you can ignore the PvP and instead just clean the floors. Taking visual inspiration from Half-Life 2 and older FPSs from the late 90s, the game is appealing to the shooter fan in me, but the concept is a bit strange to follow. Either join the Cortex to help the city and keep it safe, or fight for the Rot, that's here to spread disease and devastation. Each side has different objectives, weapons, and abilities, which make your choice have some meaning, and your actions having consequences for the city. I'm not a big fan of the survival elements though, never have been in games, but I can overlook it here. If they pull this off, this would be an incredibly unique experience worth seeking out. Developed by Enna Team, Enna Dream Barbecue is an odd adventure, having you go around trippy worlds, meeting all kinds of strange characters, and helping them out. The mix of various visual styles clash in a striking way to make the world feel unique. And the ghastly visuals make me want to explore the setting even further. Not sure how gameplay works, but I love taking a trip, so this is right up my alley. Look forward to seeing how this first chapter plays out. Build a thriving forest and survive all kinds of weather and natural disasters in this unique management game where poo is your money. Let me explain. You need to plant seeds, and those seeds need nutrients to grow, i.e. the poop. And once you grow certain flora, you're going to need a lot of fauna to generate more poop. You're essentially building a factory of feces. That's kind of gross. Polypine is a clicker game with charming visuals and a very laid-back aesthetic that isn't afraid to ask the question, who would win between an eagle and a deer? Oh, never mind. Finally, some good tactics. Knights in Tight Spaces is a turn-based card combat strategy RPG that is an unofficial sequel to Fights in Tight Spaces, which was a great little game that just lacked that oomph to really sell it. But it seems the developer Raw Fury have corrected that here. Expect to spend a few minutes every round agonizing over how to properly utilize your hand for maximum damage. I especially like how you're playing a group this time instead of fighting solo, meaning synergies and combos are even more expanded and fun to pull off. There is a demo out if you feel like giving it a go, but the game already feels like a hit. No pun intended. This one hits home a little. A game about burnout. Wanderstop is a cozy little management game where you play Alta, a warrior who's put in charge of a tea shop, something she isn't too happy with. Grow tea leaves, mix them together to make tea for the customers, talk to them and get to know them while also doing little chores to help out around the shop. Wanderstop wants you to play at your own pace, without rushing to the end. It does look very cozy, even if that's not really my jam. It comes from the team at Ivy Road, which includes Davy Vreden, creator of the Stanley Parable, so you can expect some biting humor and maybe even a fourth wall break or two. Grit and Valor from Milky T Studios basically takes the Clash of Clans format, but makes it into a game I would actually play. Taking place in an alternate World War II of mechs, which isn't a particularly unique setting. Check Ring of Red on the PS2, that game was hard. It's a roguelite strategy game taking place in small skirmish maps, instead of larger areas like most real-time strategy games. It's important to keep in mind the environment, and how to use it to your advantage. Use the proper units and troop deployment to achieve victory. I've never been good at real-time strategies, instead enjoying turn-based more, but this looks great, and I would love to try my hand at beating some maps. Speaking of strategy, Night is Coming is a real-time management game where you lead your people on their journey to escape the darkness. Build your village, give your people jobs to do, train them to fight, build defenses, and once night comes, start slapping some cheeks. The game doesn't have a persistent world, instead you keep moving to new areas to start over. I'm getting strong against the storm vibes here, which isn't a bad thing, but not sure if this will be able to stand on its own. But I always enjoy being proven wrong. Give it a look. Never has there been a more apt name for a game. The Darkest Files have you going through evidence after World War II to find some very bad people. YouTube hates that word. Go through documents of cold cases, recreate crime scenes, and interrogate people to find out the truth, and where those dastardly might be hiding. The visuals mixed with the atmosphere here are very striking, and enforces the noir aesthetic, something I'm always a sucker for. Worth keeping an eye on it to see if it can live up to the interesting if dour premise. Another roguelite, or Hades-like, feels like a genre of its own at this point. Reignbreaker takes place in a medieval punk world. We need to stop adding punk to everything. It does look like Arcane though, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. The visuals pop and explosions look amazing, as well as impactful. Combat uses motorized javelins, with different uses like a rifle, big mace, or a stick. I don't know how to describe these. The game looks good, but it's almost harder not to be in this genre. Whether it stands out, that's an entirely different story. I hope it does, because people can never get enough of these games. A minimalistic puzzle platformer with an interesting mechanic. Utilize teleportation and gravity swapping abilities to traverse a dead but dangerous biomechanical world that has your end in sight at all times. The game has over-the-top physics like we used to see back in the day, before games stopped believing in fun. I miss ragdolling. Please bring it back. Teleporting between items, freezing time to get past obstacles, and swapping the levels around are all interesting abilities. And from the trailer, it seems like the game is going to be pretty difficult, which helps the online leaderboards feel more impactful. One to keep an eye on, and definitely looking like a streamer game, if you know what I mean. A retro-inspired turn-based RPG based on a graphic novel series I've never heard of. Sounds like a win to me. Combat seems like it's taken from Grandia with a linear line showing characters' turn in combat. You can manipulate turn order with your chrono pack to send attacks in the past or forward in time, or have them link up with other characters to create more powerful team attacks. I'm not a big fan of the chibi art style, but the combat and exploration look fun enough, and there are definitely people looking out for this one. A management game with some frog genetic manipulation. We all know that never turned out bad for anyone. Rebuild your pond by creating new species of frogs to help around. Solve puzzles and find the elements needed to fix the pond. While working to rebuild the pond, you also have to fix the dreaming, which is another dimension. Hop between two different worlds to progress further, and fill out your journal to help map the world. Mudborne looks great. I love the pixel art and more laid-back approach the game is taking, while also adding in an unexpected layer of genetic manipulation. A nice cozy little game about treading where no frog was ever meant to. What a concept, bringing a gun to a knife fight. Kingmakers looks more like a gimmick, where you play a man sent back in time to murder knights indiscriminately with your AK-47. But it also sounds like a lot of fun. See how many confused soldiers you can take out with your weapons while also leading your troops to victory. You can switch between a strategic and chaotic view on the fly. This seems like a game to test your PC benchmark on. The screen is completely filled with enemies, like a modern day Muso. It looks like a fun time, but not sure about lasting power or how much variety there will be in the missions, but it's one of the most anticipated releases of the month, thanks to the crazy concept alone. Now, we just have to wait and see if it lives up to the hype. Restore the Groves. Play a witch trying to find the magical rainbow socks, the rarest of all objects. Okay. Grimoire Groves is a farming dungeon crawler with a very pleasant and colorful art style. You learn new spells to help you in either combat or to help the plant spirits grow. And while the game looks great, the combat isn't as snappy as I would like, but the visuals are wonderful and make me just feel a bit relaxed. This is a game for someone, and I hope they enjoy it to the full. Another indie Souls-like. We've had a string of good releases lately, like Wukong and Lies of P to name a few. Wield different weapons and armor sets as you explore a dystopian world, fighting enemies that wouldn't feel out of place in a Code Vein fanfiction. Reminder to try Code Vein. Everything seems standard fare for the Souls-like genre, and AI Limit doesn't have anything that really stands out. But if the combat is good, enemies fun to fight, and bosses a proper challenge, then it will still be worth picking up. One of the first gnome-likes on the list, trademark TM. To be fair, it's just a tower defense game involving gnomes, but we need more gnome-like gameplay. Put down your gnomes to defend your home from goblins. Use the environment to your advantage. Use synergies between your various gnomes and plants that you can put down, and survive the goblin horde. It has a roguelite element with every run being randomized, and even the abilities and progression system is completely random. This looks like a fun background game to put on while binging something, and that's a compliment. Gedonia 2 is an open world RPG from Kazalov Oleg Games that's trying to recreate those Oblivion and Gothic vibes we all love. It's a big upgrade to the first game, better graphics, larger map, and just more open-endedness and choice. Hopefully combat and the magic system are fleshed out enough to make the gameplay engaging. It's releasing in early access first, which can be a red flag for open world games like this, but since the developer has proven themselves before, this could be a real treat. A sequel to a critically acclaimed indie from a few years back, which I never played. I know, I have many shames in my life. It's an action RPG where combat is a rhythm game. Hit the notes or avoid them as you charge up to attack. We had a similar release this month back with Rift of the Necrodancer, and that was great. Visually, it's both a feast and attack on the senses. The pixel art style is gorgeous, but also overwhelming in how much they cram on screen. The music sounds amazing, and I definitely want to try the first one before I step into the sequel. Let me know if you think it's worth it. Now this is what I call a list. March might be more packed than a hoarder's bathroom, but let me know if any of these games look interesting to you and are first day purchases. Lots of great stuff on offer here, and it's only the third month of the year. Gaming is still going strong. But also, thank you for watching. I hope to see you all next time. Goodbye.